Giovanna was a simple girl, but with a good heart. Since childhood, she learned to fend for herself, as her mother had passed away when she was still very young. Now, at 19 years old, Giovanna divides her time between caring for her sick father and trying to earn some money so they can survive. Jose, Giovanna's father, was a 55-year-old man who became bedridden after suffering a serious car accident years ago. Since then, he could no longer work and depended entirely on his daughter's care. Giovanna did her best to give her all and ensure her father's well-being, even if it meant giving up her own dreams and needs. "Dad, I'm going out to try and make some money, okay? I promise I'll be back as soon as possible," Giovanna would say, while making her father's bed and checking if he had everything he needed. Jose looked at his daughter with admiration, feeling guilty for not being able to do more for her. "My daughter, you are so dedicated. I don't know what would become of me without you. Promise me you'll be careful out there, okay?" Giovanna would smile, trying to convey a confidence she didn't feel. "Don't worry, Dad. I always come back to take care of you." And with a kiss on her father's forehead, she would leave the house, determined to face another day's struggle for survival. Giovanna would leave the house early in the morning, her heart heavy but determination etched on her face. She knew she needed to find a way to get money and food for her and her father, so she would head to the bustling streets of the city. Arriving at her usual spot, Giovanna would sit on the ground, cup in hand, and start begging for help. "Please, a coin, a little help. My father is sick, and I need to take care of him," she would say, with tears in her eyes. Some people would pass by indifferently, while others would cast a pitying glance and drop a few coins in the cup. Giovanna felt ashamed, but she knew she had no other choice. She would stay there, under the scorching sun or the cold rain, until she had enough to go back home. Thank you very much. May God bless you," she would say to each person who gave her a helping hand, no matter how small. After hours in this exhausting routine, Giovanna would collect the money and go to the nearest market. She would choose the cheapest and most basic foods, such as rice, beans, eggs, and a few vegetables. Everything with the utmost care, as she needed to make the little she had last as long as possible. "How much was it, miss?" she would ask, already knowing she would have to juggle to make that purchase last as long as possible. "It was 17 reis, my dear," the cashier would reply, with a look of understanding. Giovanna would pay, swallowing the lump in her throat, and leave the market, carrying the heavy bags. The walk back home was arduous, but she couldn't give up. She needed to get there and take care of her father. As soon as she arrived home, Giovanna rushed to check on how her father was doing. Jose, bedridden and weakened, looked at her with affection, but also with great concern. "My daughter, you took a while." "I was worried," he said, with a weak voice. Giovanna approached the bed, placing the grocery bags on it. "I'm sorry, Dad. I had to go to the farther market because the prices are better there." She then began to take care of her father, helping him eat, bathe, and change the sheets. Giovanna did everything with patience and care, despite the visible fatigue on her face. "My dear, you don't have to work yourself to death. I know it's difficult for both of us, but you also need to rest," Jose said, with tears in his eyes. Giovanna held her father's hand, looking at him with determination. "Dad, you are all I have. I will take care of you until the end, no matter how much I have to put in the effort." She then prepared the day's meal, setting aside a larger portion for her father and a smaller one for herself. Giovanna knew she needed to eat well to have the strength to continue caring for him. After dinner, Giovanna helped her father take his medications and get more comfortable in the bed. She checked to see if he was comfortable, if he had a fever, or any other signs of discomfort. Sleep well, Dad. Tomorrow I'll come back to take care of you again, Giovanna said, giving a loving kiss on her father's forehead before retiring to rest. Despite the physical and mental fatigue, Giovanna felt fulfilled in being able to care for her father, who so desperately needed her help. This dedication was what kept her going, day after day. Giovanna knew that things were not easy at home. The money she managed to collect from begging on the streets was barely enough to buy basic food and some medications for her father. Any unexpected expenses or additional needs represented a significant challenge. Dad, the money for the month is running out and I still need to buy your medications. I think I'll have to go back to the streets tomorrow, Giovanna said, with worry etched on her face. Jose held his daughter's hand, trying to reassure her. My daughter, I know it's hard. But I don't want you to spend the whole day begging on the streets. Your health is the most important. Dad, you need these medications. Without them, you won't recover. I have to get this money, even if I have to be out there all day, Giovanna retorted, determined. They knew that the costs of her father's medical treatments had become an increasingly heavy burden. The appointments, tests, and medications were too expensive for the family's tight budget. I feel useless, Giovanna. All of this is my fault. If I could work, you wouldn't have to go through these difficulties, Jose said, his voice breaking. Giovanna embraced her father, trying to comfort him. Dad, you're not to blame for anything. I do all this because I love you and want you to get better. We'll figure it out, don't worry. Despite the words of comfort, Giovanna knew that things were getting increasingly difficult. She feared she wouldn't be able to keep up with all the expenses, but she couldn't leave her father helpless. She needed to find a solution, even if it meant sacrificing herself even more. Giovanna felt great discomfort every time she had to go out and beg on the streets. She knew that this was not the life she deserved, but she had no choice. She needed to support herself and, most importantly, take care of her sick father. Oh, my God, I hate having to do this, Giovanna would whisper to herself, as she positioned herself in her usual spot, cup extended. She hated having to plead for the charity of others, to see the pitying looks on strangers' faces. Giovanna felt humiliated and ashamed, but she couldn't leave her father unattended. Please, a little help. My father is sick, and I need to buy him medicines, she would say, trying to control the tears that threatened to fall. Some people would stop and drop a few coins in the cup, while others would simply pass by, looking the other way. Giovanna felt a mixture of gratitude and shame with each contribution. Thank you, may God bless you, she would say, forcing a smile. Despite feeling bad about having to beg, Giovanna saw no other alternative. She knew that the money she managed to collect was essential for her and her father's survival. Giovanna had to swallow her pride and dignity to ensure that Jose received the care he needed. Dad, I'm sorry I have to do this. I know it's humiliating, but I have no other choice, Giovanna would say, when she returned home, her heart heavy. Jose, upon seeing his daughter, would embrace her with affection. My dear, I know how difficult this must be for you. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do for me. Those comforting words from her father helped alleviate Giovanna's suffering a little. She knew that despite the sacrifice, she was doing the right thing by caring for the man she loved so much. That day, Giovanna left home with a renewed sense of hope. She had woken up with the feeling that something different would happen. Arriving at her usual spot, she sat on the ground, cup extended, and began to beg for help. Please, a coin. My father is very sick and needs medicines, Giovanna said, with her soft voice and eyes shining with restrained tears. To her surprise, people seemed more receptive that day. Perhaps it was the desperation in her expression or the sincerity of her words, but the donations started to flow with more generosity. "Here, my child, I hope this helps," said a middle-aged man, placing some bills in Giovanna's cup. "Thank you so much, sir. May God bless you," she responded with a genuine smile. Throughout the morning, Giovanna received more and more contributions. The people seemed touched by her story and the visible dedication she demonstrated in caring for her father. "You are a very brave girl. Here, buy something nice for you and your father," said an elderly woman, handing her a handful of coins. Giovanna was moved by each gesture of solidarity. She knew that this money would make a huge difference for them at that moment. When she finally decided to go back home, Giovanna counted the coins and bills she had collected. To her surprise, it was almost double what she usually managed to gather in an entire day. "Wow, this is incredible. Thank God, now I'll be able to buy Dad's medicines and there will still be something left for food," she exclaimed, hurrying home. Giovanna felt relieved and hopeful. Maybe that day marked a small improvement in the difficult situation she and her father were in. Giovanna walked cheerfully through the streets, thinking about how productive that day had been. Finally, she had enough money to buy her father's medications and some food as well. However, when she arrived home, the scene unfolding before her left her completely perplexed. There was her father, Jose, getting out of a large black car, dressed in what seemed to be very expensive clothes. "Dad? What's going on?" Giovanna questioned, her eyes wide with surprise. Jose, upon seeing his daughter, became visibly embarrassed. He adjusted his dress shirt and suit, trying to conceal his confusion. "Ah, my daughter. I didn't know you were back already," he stammered, nervous. Giovanna looked him up and down, trying to understand this unusual situation. "Dad, these clothes, this car. Where did you get all this?" "Well, it's a long story, Giovanna. I met someone who is helping me," Jose responded, avoiding eye contact. The young woman became increasingly intrigued. "Someone? What person? What do you mean, is helping you?" She then noticed that the car belonged to an elegantly dressed woman, who was waiting inside the vehicle. Giovanna felt a knot in her stomach, suspecting that something was not right. "Dad, what's going on? Why is this woman helping you? And why are you dressed like this?" she questioned, her tone of voice starting to show concern. Jose hesitated for a few moments, trying to find the right words to explain that delicate situation. He knew he would have to be honest with his daughter, even if that meant revealing a painful truth. Giovanna stared at her father, still perplexed by the scene she was witnessing. Those expensive clothes and the luxurious car did not match the reality she knew at all. "Dad, please, explain to me what's going on. Where did all this money come from? And who is this woman who's helping you?" she questioned, with a concerned expression on her face. Jose hesitated for a few moments, knowing he would have to be honest with his daughter. He approached Giovanna and took her hands, trying to calm her down. "My dear, I know all of this seems very strange. The truth is, I met a person, a woman, who was moved by our situation and is helping me financially." Giovanna furrowed her brow, still confused. "A woman? Helping financially? But why? What does she want in return?" "Well, she said she just wanted to help me, without asking for anything in return. She said she was touched by our story and wanted to do something for us," Jose explained, avoiding eye contact. Giovanna could see the hesitation in her father. Something about this story didn't seem right. Dad, you're hiding something from me, aren't you? Why would this woman want to help us out of the blue like that? It doesn't make sense, she insisted, feeling a lump form in her throat. Jose sighed deeply, knowing he could no longer hide the truth. Giovanna, the truth is, this woman, she's helping me, but in exchange for some favors. Giovanna's heart raced upon hearing those words. She felt a shiver run through her body, fearing the worst. Favors? What kind of favors, Dad? At that moment, Jose lowered his head, unable to look his daughter in the eye. I'm not proud of this, my daughter. But it's the only way I've found to keep you safe and take care of you. Giovanna felt the tears rolling down her face. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her mind was spinning, trying to understand that disturbing situation. Jose could see the confusion and concern etched on Giovanna's face. He knew he had to be honest with her, no matter how difficult it was. Dad, please, tell me the truth. What's going on? Giovanna pleaded, holding her father's hands firmly. Jose sighed deeply, feeling ashamed. My daughter, I'm not proud of this, but it's the only way I've found to help you and take care of myself. Giovanna furrowed her brow, still not understanding. What do you mean? What's happening? Reluctantly, Jose began to explain. Well, I met this woman, an influential person in the city. She said she was moved by our situation and wanted to help me. Help? How so? Giovanna questioned, feeling a knot in her throat. She said she would give me money, enough for me to take care of us both. But in exchange, I would have to do some favors for her, Jose revealed, avoiding eye contact. Giovanna was shocked by those words. Favors? What kind of favors, Dad? You're scaring me. Embarrassed, Jose lowered his head. I know, my daughter. I know this is not right, but I was desperate. You and I were going through so much difficulty, I didn't know what else to do. He then raised his face, looking at his daughter with teary eyes. This woman said she would help me financially, as long as I did some things for her. I know it's not right, but I had no other choice. I needed to keep you safe and take care of you. Giovanna felt her heart breaking as she saw her father in that situation. She could understand the hopelessness he must have been feeling, but it all seemed so wrong. Dad, I don't know what to say. This can't be happening, she murmured, the tears streaming down her face. Jose hugged her tightly, trying to comfort her. I know, my daughter. I know this is very difficult. But I needed to do something to help you. You're all I have. Giovanna clung to her father, feeling confused and betrayed. She wanted to understand, but the situation seemed so complicated and disturbing. After her father's troubling revelation, Giovanna was conflicted. On one hand, she felt relieved that they had finally obtained financial assistance, which meant they could be more comfortable and better care for Jose's health. But on the other hand, something deep inside her was deeply troubled. Dad, I understand that you were desperate and wanted to help me, but this story doesn't make much sense, Giovanna said, her voice faltering. Jose held his daughter's hands, trying to reassure her. I know, my dear. I don't fully understand either why this woman is helping us in this way. But she said she was simply moved by our situation. Giovanna furrowed her brow, still suspicious. But that's not normal, Dad. No one helps someone like that, out of the blue, without wanting anything in return. Are you sure you're not involved in something illegal? No, no, of course not. Jose quickly responded. This woman said she just wanted to help us. She's an influential person and has the means to provide us with this support. Giovanna sighed, still feeling a pang of concern. I want to believe you, Dad. But all of this seems very strange. I can't understand why someone would do this for us. Jose hugged his daughter, trying to reassure her. I know, my daughter. I don't fully understand either, but we needed this help so much. I didn't have the strength to see you suffering and not be able to do anything. Giovanna returned the hug, feeling a little more relieved, but still suspicious. Something told her there was more to this story than her father was revealing. Okay, Dad. I know you did this for us. But I'll keep an eye on this situation, okay? I don't want you to get hurt or get involved in anything dangerous, she said, with determination. Jose nodded, knowing he could no longer hide anything from Giovanna. All right, my daughter. I promise I'll be honest with you. This conversation had left Giovanna even more perplexed. She would find out the truth, even if she had to investigate on her own. After the troubling conversation with her father, Giovanna became increasingly intrigued and suspicious. Something about this story didn't seem right, and she needed to uncover the truth. In the following days, Giovanna began to closely observe her father's movements. She noticed when he dressed up in expensive clothes and left the house, apparently to meet with that mysterious woman. Dad, where do you go every time you leave dressed so nicely? Giovanna asked, trying to sound casual. Jose hesitated a bit before responding. Oh, I have some commitments, my daughter. Things related to the help that person is giving me. Giovanna nodded, pretending to believe him, but inside her heart was racing. She needed to find out what was really going on. One of those days, Giovanna decided to take action. While Jose was getting ready to leave, she waited a few minutes and then discreetly followed him through the streets. I'm sorry, Dad. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I need to know the truth, Giovanna murmured to herself, keeping a safe distance. She watched her father's steps closely, being extremely careful not to be noticed. Giovanna followed as Jose entered a luxurious hotel in the city center. A hotel? What is he doing here? She wondered, feeling a tightness in her chest. Giovanna stayed outside the hotel, observing the entrance cautiously. After a few minutes, she saw her father coming out of the hotel, accompanied by an elegantly dressed woman. Her heart raced at the sight. It can't be. This must be the benefactor who's helping Dad, Giovanna concluded, feeling deeply disappointed. She watched the two get into the woman's car and leave. Giovanna knew she needed to act quickly, as she now had proof that her father was involved in something very suspicious. Giovanna had become increasingly intrigued by the changes in her father's behavior in recent days. That story of a benefactor who was helping them didn't seem convincing at all. Determined to uncover the truth, Giovanna decided to discreetly follow her father when he left the house, once again, all dressed up. She kept a safe distance, closely observing her father's movements. To her surprise, Jose entered a huge hotel, located in the city center. A hotel? What is he doing here? Giovanna wondered, feeling a pang of concern. She hid behind some trees and watched the hotel entrance. A few minutes later, she saw her father come out, accompanied by an elegantly dressed woman. The young woman's eyes widened at the sight. So this must be the benefactor who's helping my father, she concluded, feeling a lump form in her throat. Giovanna saw the two get into the woman's luxurious car and leave. She stood petrified, not knowing what to think. The situation seemed increasingly disturbing and involving. My God, what's going on? This woman can't be simply helping my father, Giovanna whispered to herself, feeling a mix of disappointment, sadness, and anger. She knew she had to confront her father about this. Giovanna couldn't believe he could be involved in something so suspicious and, possibly, illegal. With her heart racing, the young woman decided to go back home and wait for her father's arrival. She needed to understand what was happening, even if it meant facing a painful truth. As soon as Jose arrived home, Giovanna was waiting for him in the living room, with an expression of deep concern and disappointment on her face. Dad, I need to talk to you. Now, she said, in a firm yet emotional tone. Jose, sensing the seriousness of the situation, sat down next to his daughter, fearing what was to come. What is it, my daughter? Did something happen? He asked, trying to appear calm. Giovanna looked at him, with tears in her eyes. I followed you today, Dad. I saw you entering that luxurious hotel with that woman. Jose lowered his head, knowing he could no longer hide the truth. Giovanna, I can explain. Explain what, Dad? That you're involved with this woman in exchange for money? Giovanna retorted, her voice faltering with disappointment. No, it's not like that, my daughter. This woman, she's helping me, Jose said, trying to justify himself. Giovanna shook her head, incredulous. Helping? Dad, do you really think someone would help you like that, out of the blue? Without wanting anything in return? Ashamed, Jose sighed deeply. Giovanna, the truth is that this woman is helping me, but in exchange for some favors. Her father's words hit Giovanna like a bucket of cold water. She felt her heart break as she understood what was really happening. Favors? You mean you're prostituting yourself, Dad? She asked, her voice trembling. Jose held his daughter's hands, with tears in his eyes. I know, my dear. I know this is wrong, but I had no other choice. You and I were going through such a difficult situation, I needed to do something to help you. Giovanna sobbed, feeling betrayed and disgusted. So you're selling yourself to this woman? How could you do this? Giovanna, please, try to understand. I did this for us, so you could have a better life, Jose pleaded, desperate. But Giovanna couldn't comprehend it. She stood up, moving away from her father, unable to look at the man she loved so much. I can't believe this, Dad. You let yourself get involved in this. This filthy thing. I can't forgive you for this, she said, before running out, leaving Jose alone and completely devastated. After the devastating revelation from her father, Giovanna ran out of the house, her heart broken and her mind in turmoil. She couldn't believe what she had just discovered. No, this can't be true. My father can't be doing this, Giovanna murmured to herself, the tears streaming down her face. She walked aimlessly through the streets, feeling betrayed, disgusted, and deeply disappointed. How could her own father be involved in something so degrading? How could he do this? He's prostituting himself to that woman. Giovanna exclaimed, shaking her head in denial. Despite the shock and outrage she felt, Giovanna still couldn't fully understand the situation. Was it possible that her father really had no other choice? Maybe he's desperate. Maybe he really didn't have a choice, she thought, trying to find some justification for that repugnant behavior. Giovanna stopped on a park bench, trying to organize her thoughts. She knew she needed to confront the woman who was exploiting her father. No, I can't just let this happen. I need to understand what's really going on, Giovanna decided, wiping the tears with her trembling hands. She took a deep breath and started walking towards the luxurious hotel where she had seen her father and the mysterious woman. Giovanna knew she would face something disturbing, but she couldn't leave her father in that degrading situation. I'll uncover the truth. Even if I have to face this woman head-on, she said, determined to find answers, even if it cost her more pain and disappointment. Giovanna was afraid of what she might discover, but her concern for her father was greater than any other feeling. She needed to understand what was happening, no matter the cost. Determined to uncover the truth, Giovanna headed to the luxurious hotel where she had seen her father meet with that mysterious woman. Her heart was racing, but she knew she had to face this situation head-on. Entering the hotel, Giovanna looked around, searching for any sign of the elegant woman. After a few minutes, she spotted her sitting on one of the reception sofas, sipping a drink. Gathering all her courage, Giovanna walked towards the woman, who looked at her with surprise. "Excuse me, I need to speak with you," Giovanna said, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman stared at her, seeming annoyed. "Yes, what do you want?" Giovanna took a deep breath before continuing. "You are helping my father, Jose. I want to know why you are doing this and what you are demanding in return." The woman raised an eyebrow, clearly bothered. "Your father? What are you talking about, girl? Don't play dumb. I saw you two together in this hotel. I know you're giving him money, but I want to know what you're asking for in return," Giovanna insisted, feeling the adrenaline rushing through her veins. The woman sighed and, after a brief silence, responded, "All right, since you seem to know so much, I'll be honest. Your father is receiving this financial assistance because he's providing me with certain services." Giovanna felt a tightness in her chest upon hearing those words. "Services? What kind of services?" The woman gave a disdainful smile. "Let's just say your father does some special work for me. In return, I generously compensate him." Giovanna felt nauseous as she understood the meaning of those words. "So you're exploiting my father? This is horrible. Look here, girl, it's not that simple. Your father came to me, begging for help. I'm giving him what he wants, and he's giving me what I want. It's a profitable business for both of us," the woman said, in a cold and calculating tone. Giovanna felt the tears burning in her eyes. "But this is wrong. My father is prostituting himself because of you. He has no choice, he's desperate." The woman shrugged, indifferent. "Not everyone is lucky in life, my dear. Your father made his choice, and now he'll have to deal with the consequences." Giovanna was devastated and horrified by this revelation. She couldn't believe that her own father had become involved in something so degrading. She had to get him out of that situation, no matter the cost. After Giovanna confronted the woman and demanded explanations about her supposed help to her father, the indifference and cynicism in her gaze left the young woman even more shocked. "Look here, girl, it's not that simple. Your father came to me, begging for help. I'm giving him what he wants, and he's giving me what I want. It's a profitable business for both of us," the woman said, with a disdainful smile. Giovanna felt a lump in her throat, her voice trembling with indignation. "So you admit you're exploiting my father? This is absurd, he has no choice." The woman sighed, as if explaining something to a child. "Not everyone is lucky in life, my dear. Your father made his choice, and now he'll have to deal with the consequences. Giovanna couldn't believe the coldness and cruelty of that woman. Consequences? You're taking advantage of my father's misfortune. This is completely wrong. The woman then crossed her legs and took a sip of her drink, still with that irritating smile on her face. Look, dear, I have nothing to do with your father's situation. He came to me, and I simply took the opportunity. It's a business, that's all. Giovanna could barely contain her outrage. A business? You're using my father as if he were a commodity. This is an exploitation scheme, not a commercial transaction. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I exploit vulnerable people, like your father, and I get advantages from that. It's profitable and convenient for me, the woman revealed, without any remorse. Giovanna felt her heart sink as she heard that raw and inhumane confession. So you admit you're involved in an exploitation scheme? This is illegal and repugnant. The woman shrugged, with disdain. It may be illegal, but no one can stop me. I have enough influence and power to get out of any trouble. Giovanna felt a wave of hatred and despair take over her. She needed to get her father out of that situation, even if it meant reporting that cruel woman to the authorities. After the shocking revelation from the woman, Giovanna felt her heart beating uncontrollably. Anger and indignation took over her being as she tried to process all that disturbing information. So you admit you're involved in an exploitation scheme? This is illegal and repugnant. Giovanna exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. However, the woman maintained her arrogant and indifferent posture. It may be illegal, but no one can stop me. I have enough influence and power to get out of any trouble. Those words only made Giovanna feel even more outraged. No, you're very mistaken. I won't let this happen. I'm going to report you and my father to all the authorities. The woman let out a mocking laugh. Report? Do you really think anyone will listen to you, girl? Your father is an accomplice in this story, and no one will believe you. Giovanna felt the tears of anger streaming down her face. That's not true. My father is desperate, you're taking advantage of him. I won't let this go. She then turned around, determined to leave and put her plan into action. Giovanna knew she needed to act quickly, before that influential woman could cover up her crimes. When she arrived home, Giovanna quickly located the phone and dialed the police number, explaining in detail everything she had discovered. Please, you need to act. My father is being exploited by an influential woman in this city. She's using him in a scheme to exploit vulnerable people, Giovanna pleaded, her voice choked with emotion. The police officers seemed to take her report seriously and promised to investigate the case immediately. Giovanna finally felt hopeful that her father could be rescued from that horrible situation. Wait at home, we'll keep you informed, the officer said before hanging up the phone. Giovanna let herself fall onto the sofa, the adrenaline still running through her veins. She prayed that the police would act in time to prevent her father from being further harmed by that cruel and unscrupulous woman. Not long after, the phone rang, making Giovanna jump from her seat. She answered quickly, hoping for news from the police. Hello? Yes, it's me, Giovanna responded, her heart racing. Miss, this is Detective Silva. We just intervened in your father's situation. We were able to rescue him and arrest the woman involved in the exploitation scheme, the police officer informed. Giovanna felt a deep sense of relief wash over her. Oh, thank God. So you were able to uncover the truth. Is my father okay? Yes, your report proved to be true. After investigating, we discovered that this woman was part of a network of exploitation of vulnerable people. Your father was one of the victims, the detective explained. Giovanna took a deep breath, feeling comforted. My God, I can't believe it. So he's safe now. Exactly. We found him at the hotel and brought him to the police station. He's a bit shaken, but he's safe, the officer assured. Giovanna felt a wave of emotion take over her. Can I see him? Please, I need to talk to him. Of course, come to the police station as soon as possible. Your father is eager for your arrival, the detective responded. Giovanna could hardly wait to reunite with her father. She rushed out of the house, feeling relieved and hopeful. Finally, this nightmare was coming to an end. When she arrived at the police station, Giovanna saw Jose, sitting on a bench with his head down. Upon seeing her, he stood up and enveloped her in a tight embrace. My daughter. I can't believe you did this for me, Jose said, his voice trembling. Giovanna hugged him back, feeling the tears rolling down her face. Father, I could never have left you in that situation. I did what I had to do. The detective approached the two with a serious expression. Mr. Jose, we understand that the woman was emotionally and financially exploiting you. Unfortunately, your case is not unique. Jose nodded, with a sad look. I know. I feel like a fool for getting involved with that woman. But I had no other choice. Giovanna held her father's hand, trying to comfort him. Father, you're not to blame for anything. That woman is the one who deserves all the blame. The detective intervened. Exactly. And now we'll make sure you have the necessary support to get back on your feet. We have a partner NGO that can help you through this process. Giovanna and Jose felt a sense of relief wash over them. Finally, there seemed to be a light at the end of the tunnel. After being rescued from the terrible situation involving the exploitative woman, Giovanna and Jose were referred to an NGO specialized in assisting people in social vulnerability. Don't worry, here you'll receive all the support you need to get back on your feet, said the social worker of the organization, with a welcoming smile. Giovanna held her father's hand, who still seemed shaken by everything that had happened. Thank you, we really need this help. The social worker nodded empathetically. We understand completely. You've been through a traumatic experience, but now you're safe. We'll work together to help you resume your lives with dignity. She then led them to a room, where she explained the various support programs offered by the NGO. Here you'll have access to social assistance services, psychological counseling, vocational training courses, and even temporary financial aid. Jose, who had been keeping his head down, looked up, a spark of hope shining in his eyes. This is amazing. I don't know how to thank you enough. Giovanna squeezed her father's hand, smiling. We're the ones who should be thanking you, sir. This help will make a huge difference in our lives. The social worker nodded, satisfied. I'm glad to hear that. Our goal is to empower people in vulnerable situations, giving them the necessary tools to achieve their independence. In the following days, Giovanna and Jose actively participated in the programs offered by the NGO. They received legal guidance, psychological support, and even temporary financial assistance, which allowed them to rent a small apartment and distance themselves from life on the streets. With the help of vocational training courses, Jose managed to get a job at a mechanic's workshop. Giovanna, after completing a computer course, found a position in an office. See, Father. We're managing to get back on our feet. Now we can live with dignity, Giovanna said, with a radiant smile on her face. Jose hugged her, emotional. My dear, I don't even know how to thank you for everything you've done for me. You are my hero. Together, father and daughter were building a new life, far from the difficulties and exploitation that had tormented them in the past. They looked to the future with hope, determined to overcome all the adversities they had faced. Several months had passed since Giovanna and her father, Jose, were rescued from the terrible situation of exploitation. Now, with the support of the NGO, they had finally managed to re-establish themselves and rebuild their lives. Giovanna looked around, admiring the small but comfortable apartment they had rented. Father, look at this place. Who would have thought we could get out of that life on the streets? Jose smiled, with a gleam of pride in his eyes. Yes, my daughter. I can hardly believe we are here, safe and with a roof over our heads. They sat on the sofa, enjoying the feeling of being in a home again. Giovanna held her father's hand, squeezing it affectionately. Father, I wanted to apologize for having doubted you at that time. I should have understood your situation better, she said, her voice wavering. Jose hugged her with an understanding smile. No, my dear. You did the right thing. It was I who let myself get involved in that terrible situation. But thanks to you, we were able to get out of it. Giovanna returned the hug, feeling relieved. I'm so happy that you're doing well now. And look, you got such a good job at the workshop. Jose nodded with a proud smile. Yes, and you too, my daughter. That office job will give you so many opportunities. They remained silent for a few moments, savoring the moment of peace and tranquility. Giovanna then turned to her father, with determination shining in her eyes. Father, I know we've been through very difficult times. But now look at us. We're together, safe, and with a future ahead of us. Let's keep fighting, let's overcome all adversities, she said, firmly holding his hand. Jose looked at her, with tears of emotion in his eyes. Yes, my daughter. Together, we will achieve a better life. I have so much faith in you and in our future. Embracing, father and daughter looked to the horizon with hope, ready to face the challenges that might still come. They knew that, united, nothing would prevent them from achieving the independence and dignity they so deserved.